Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are the Ask Academy. That's right, John and Boy. We are the Ask Academy. We're talking geometry today. And in geometry, we're looking specifically today as I wrap around on the camera here, angle measurements and their classifications. We're going to be looking specifically at that today. Hey, I welcome you here to the Academy. Yeah, we're looking at angles. We're going to look at how to measure them with a tool that we call a protractor and refresh your memory on how to do that. And then we're going to look at classifying them with certain names and how those things occur. Again, a lot of this we've already seen in previous math classes. We just want to make sure that here at the Ask Academy we're all on the same sound footing as we move through the geometry content. An angle is simply defined as two rays that are connected when sharing the same endpoint. Once again, an angle are two rays that share the same endpoint. That endpoint, we use a V word, vertex, as the definition of what that endpoint is. And we're going to be using that vertex word quite a bit. So be familiar with it. We're going to talk about other shapes that have vertexes as well. So that angle, now here's some convention in how to name angles. So be aware of how we do that. We can use, I want to use this symbol as we write it with our pens and pencils. See an angle with a little arc through it. That communicates the phrase, English phrase, angle. So this reads angle CBA. Now that's C, B, and A. Notice that the vertex, the shared endpoint, is in the middle. Angle ABC, ABC. Now that happens to be the same angle, but I want you to notice the B point, or the vertex, is always in the middle. Now, if we have an angle and we only have one, in this picture, we have more than one angle. But if all I have is one angle with one vertex named by a letter, we can now refer to that angle as just angle F. Like if I didn't have this line drawn and all I had was that ABC angle, we could call it angle B because it wouldn't be confusing. It would only be one angle. But in this picture, can I say, hey, find angle B? Well, it's confusing because actually B is the vertex for 1, 2, and then the bigger one, 3 angles. And so you're not really sure which one you're asking somebody to focus on. So for clarity of communication, we use 3 letters when we're naming an angle. But no, if we only have one angle, we can just use that vertex to identify, hey, find angle F. See, that isn't confusing. It's the only one there. Okay, so measuring. Measuring, we want to use a protractor. Now, the one I've got is a little funky, a little different than what I thought I was going to use. But again, yours is going to be similar. You're going to add up or line up a crosshair or a hole, center hole, out of it, depending on what kind of a protractor you've got. You're going to put that right on the end point, right on the vertex, and then you're going to line up the edge with one of your rays. And if I wanted to get the measurement, which is what this symbol means, measurement of angle ABC, I would line up that crosshair on the end point and then line up that edge on the ray. And then I'm going to read from a smaller number. Now this says 0 degrees. And then I want to read over to where that's at, and actually we're looking at it to be right at 20 degrees, 19, 20 degrees. And so that's what we wrote there is the measurement of that angle ABC. Angle BCA is the same angle, so it has the same measurement, CBA. If we measure, if I show using the tool one more time, measuring that angle DBA, the bigger one. Again, I put the crosshair on the vertex, line up with one of the rays, the edge, and then again I'm going to read from smaller 10. Again, it's confusing because I have 0 and 180. But then if I go 180 in the same spot, the numbers are getting smaller. Well, I'm going to start with going smaller and getting bigger. 0, 10, 20, 30 gets to 90, 100, 100, 100, 110, 100, and let me try again. 90, 110, 120, 133 degrees as I'm reading that from left to right. So again, demonstrating how to use the protractor. that you have, reading from smaller to bigger, lining up the crosshairs on the vertex, lining up with one of the rays, and reading from smaller to bigger. So okay, so angles. We know how to take measurements. We've gotten some writing conventions of names. We know how to label them and give the vertex as the endpoint. Here are some classifications. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. That means it's like this ABC angle, less than 90, bigger than 0. And an obtuse angle now is between 90 and 180, like the angle ABD. It's 133 degrees. That would be considered to be obtuse. A right angle, you need to be familiar with what a right angle is. That is exactly 90 degrees. Again, if I do have a right angle, and I'll use this picture down here. If I do have a right angle like this one and this one, we communicate, don't assume just because it looks right. We want to make sure that we communicate well with a box in the middle. That's communicating that it is indeed exactly 90 degrees, and we can communicate it that way. Again, a straight angle is this, like this angle here. It's two rays, this ray going to the left, this ray going to the right. They're actually considered to be opposite rays, and thus create a straight angle, we call it, that of being 180 degrees. Oh, it's a straight line, Stevenson. That's not an angle. Well, a straight line we do consider to be an angle. It has 180 degrees in it. The last phrase that I want to communicate to you is how to determine if angles are indeed congruent. Again, from a previous lesson, congruent means same size, same shape. Well, all angles have the same shape. I mean, they're two rays with a common endpoint, but they don't all have the same size. They don't all have the same measurement of angle. And so congruent angles, however, do have the same measurement of degrees. If you measure two angles and you see that their measurements are the same, they have the same degrees, then they're considered to be congruent. If they don't, then they're not. If you're told that two angles are congruent, you can trust that their measurements of degrees are exactly the same. And by the way, this is the symbol that we use, a little equal symbol with a little squiggly line above it. That's the symbol that we use for the phrase congruent, and that's the symbol that we use for the phrase angle. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We are the Ask Academy, and today it's been angles, their measurements, and their classifications, the different names as we go through this geometry content. That's right, we are the Ask Academy.
On the high,